Imagine a conscious contact with God so strong that no matter what you are doing or not doing, that no matter what your kids are up to or not up to, and that whether you've got the person of your dreams or they're just not cooperating, that you are happy, content, and at peace. A space where everyone else's thoughts, attitudes, and actions are beautiful and exactly as they are supposed to be. Well, this is the space where I like to play. My name is Misha Z, and this is today's Bitch Slap. Join me as I shed light on the thoughts, actions, and attitudes that are causing you pain, and we train our minds to go to the capital S inner self, the joy that is waiting for us, the God within. Kirk Michie, welcome to the Bitch Slap podcast.
You sound like you're in your kind of NPR, quiet kind of bedroom voice.
I love that. I like the articulating arm. That's the, so I
pretty neat.
Yeah.
Plus you get to say articulating.
Right?
So there's that. On screen this way, so you look less Roger Daltrey and more Don Imus right now.
Yes.
The bandana helps and the headphones, that was Imus's look.
Yes. Let me ask you, how do you like to consume your content? So there's obviously, the radio style, David or Howard Stern, who's I guess on XM nowadays, or are you podcasts or books or blogs, or what's your main source?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So I like some vlogs, although I think I'm not sure where we are in terms of peak podcast, peak blog, peak vlog, but there are a number of podcasts that I consume on a regular basis. Both of Preet Bharara's Stay Tuned and Cafe Insider, almost anything Kara Swisher does, whether it's her Sway podcast or her Pivot podcast.
Yep.
And I get, my fair share of Galloway that way.
Yeah.
I subscribe to his Section 4, so I get that. I get Seth Godin's blog on a regular basis.
So you're reading his content?
Yeah. And then in terms of both on my Kindle and in kind of paperback and hardcover books, I'm always reading at least 3 books. And the target is usually, one thing that's kind of spiritual, one thing that's more sort of business oriented or, personal and professional development. And then one thing that's escapism. And for me, that's usually mystery novels. Although, from time to time, it'll just be, literary fiction.
That's cool.
And on the podcast, I've sort of, with not commuting, which was the time that I consumed most of my podcasts.
Yep.
I get a little bit behind.
Yeah.
And when I'm trail running, I listen to books on Audible. So there's usually one other book going on in that vein.
So are you, as you're jogging, or trail running, able to focus and maintain cognizance, I guess, is that the right word with your?
Yeah. So I would say that when you're trail running, as opposed to, running on the road, there's more kind of proprioception required, kind of where you are in relation to, undulations in the trail and rocks and things like that.
Yes.
But I kind of release a lot more when I'm on trail runs. I either, I process issues, but I also just kind of blank out. What I find with my Audible retention is if I like the material and I like, I especially like when the author is reading, because I think there's something to that. Like right now, I finished Isabel Wilkerson's Cast as an audiobook.
All right.
it's dense and important work. And I don't know that I would have gotten as much out of it by reading it. And the same experience with Frederick Douglass's biography.
Okay.
And then like Ta-Nehisi Coates's Between the World and Me, would several times per run make me cry. And I don't know if that would have happened for me had I not been listening to Coates read it, because it's an elegy of sorts to his 15-year-old son. And hearing him read this letter to his son about what world he was entering into, as an audiobook was really, really significant.
So tell me the name of that book again.
It's Between the World and Me.
And it's by, say the name again.
Ta-Nehisi Coates.
And so, did his son pass away or something? Or
No, he's a Black man who grew up in a section of Baltimore that has, I would charitably call it dangerous for Black people because of the white cops and the white influence.
Okay.
Basically telling his son, I wish I didn't have to tell you the things that you're going to need to know to protect your body in the world, right? It's a conversation you and I never had to have with our white sons. And
gosh, I go on.
It's haunting. It's it's the kind of thing that you just, when you hear it, it has to be true.
It's so profound. That makes me think of a couple things. And one is just the lottery of life. And to me today, it's very clear a lot of things. Well, as I get older, the more I realize most of it is the lottery of life. When I was younger, it was very, very much, oh yes, I'm the master of the universe, the captain of my domain, or what I have done has got me here, right? And that is very clear to be a massive illusion.
Yeah, for all of us, Mish.
For all of us.
Look, I think you can make the case, and I know not everybody would agree with this, and some people would actually try and push back on it. And depending on my mood, I'd either debate them or let them have their own viewpoint. But look, if you were born in the United States and you're white and your parents owned a home and you got a college education, that was paid for largely or all by, your parents and their taxes, then you in effect started on at least third base. And if your parents were rich, then you were halfway to home plate. So then telling yourself that your accomplishments are extraordinary and that we all had, kind of an equal shot and, this sorry, just not true. Try and tell anybody who watched the events at the Capitol on January 6th, try and tell a person of color, that's not who we are, right? They would say, really? I think that's exactly who we are.
Right. It's endemic. That's
might be news to you guys, but that's exactly who we are.
And we were designed for that moment. I would say that is our country is designed for that. And I would say the Democrats' response, and I'm not going to say which side I'm on. I look at it stepping back. I look at what happened on January 6th and I go, yeah, that's all the values that we perpetrate as a country. And I'm not going to place any value judgment on it, but that is the manifestation of it.
Sure.
In my, right. And then I also say, okay, great. So coming out of it, I look at it as kind of ludicrous that we're trying to impeach. I don't know. I can't believe I'm going down this path, but I'm going to anyway. I do believe there's a bit of ludicrousness that we're trying to impeach a president. When's he going to be out of office anyway? So I am like, really, are we? That makes me believe the conspiracy theories that a lot of politics are just distractions from power grab, or distractions. It's like, hey, here's this shiny distraction. Now the underlying workings are going on.
Yeah, I have a slightly different take on it, and I don't know if this speaks to ideology or what it is, but I think that one, precedent's important, and two, that incitement towards insurrection and not accepting the results of a free, fair, and democratic election are all things that are dangerous to the democratic experiment and the republic, and that anybody who does that should not only not be in office, but the impeachment will ensure, if they essentially perfect it after conviction, will ensure that he can never hold office again. And by the way, to add insult to injury, he would lose $200,000 a year pension benefits. He would lose $1 million a year travel
yes.
benefits, and he would lose Secret Service protection for life. And in my view,
might be a good thing.
Whether it had been a Democrat or a Republican, that is a good thing. That is a good thing, because look, but what I meant about that's exactly who we are, is that look, I think we took this country from an indigenous people. And we can't necessarily right those wrongs, but we brought slaves to this country and built wealth based upon slavery. And not for nothing, but had 2,000 people of color stormed the barricades of the Capitol last week. The death count would have been higher, and the discussion this week would be different.
There's no doubt about that. I will not dispute that fact at all. I think I take the viewpoint, however, that it's more of I like rebellion, or what would we call what happened? I like not rebellion. What's the word I'm looking for? Pushback, as long as it's on my terms.
Sure.
Right. So I think that's the irony to me, as we talk about as a country, the idea of pushing back, the idea of challenging the man, all this sorts of things. And then depending on who's doing the challenging, the other side is in constant turmoil. So that's the irony to me. So I look at it and go, well, our country, and this is you're clearly, just by the way our conversation started here, I'm going to say much more up to speed, much more well-read, much more educated on these things. I'm very detached. So my viewpoint is the extremely detached viewpoint. And I'm not going to say one is right or the other. I think it takes both of us to make the world go round. But from the
completely agree with that.
Yeah. So from the detached viewpoint, I look at it again and go, well, this is just par of the course of ideals that the underlying ideal of challenging the system, of pushing the envelope, these sorts of things, that is absolutely happening, but it's just not on some people's terms currently. And then that switch will flip, right? Assuming, Biden and everybody, now the right will be upset that norms are being challenged, but just not according to how I want them to be, or you want them to be, or what have you.
You're not at all wrong. I mean, look, this first of all, none of us should get too righteous, because who knows, when we're hitting the convergence point between when we're completely right and when we just kind of like.
My interweb may be spotty. Hold that thought. You effectively said before we all get too righteous, and then you
Oh
cut
yeah.
off. So
Yeah, look, I think that sometimes I can feel like I'm on the right side of history because there seems to be um, consequences for the other side acting in a way that I think is the logical manifestation of a path they were headed down recklessly anyway.
yeah.
And so I can then say, you guys are surprised, been trying to tell you this for a long, long time.
Right.
But look, I'm on the board of ACLU. I I have with my kids and wife marched in the Pride Parade.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe in kind of the broadest sense of freedom and civil liberties, right?
Yeah.
But I also think we're a nation of laws, and so whether you're progressive or conservative, you don't get to break the law in service to what you want to do. And so I think look, if I want to look at how executive order by the president has been used to jam things through where the House and the Senate weren't on the same page or might have pushed back. It's not like Barack Obama didn't do that. And I would tell you that Barack Obama is like one of my heroes and a wonderful president, but it's not as if he didn't engage in any politics ever. I just think that the dangerous thing is the false equivalence when people say, well, all politicians lie, so there's nothing wrong with what this guy's doing. That's wrong. All right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's like saying that somebody who's going 4 miles an hour over the speed limit is the same as somebody who's doubling the speed limit and saying, well, everybody speeds.
Yeah.
That's just not true.
Yeah.
Or at least they're not equivalent.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked your comment on the we are a nation of laws too, which actually gives us sort of that financial power strength that we have as a nation, because lots of money believes that we'll hold to laws. So they feel like property laws are safe, money's safe, things like that. So,
I mean, look, one of the things, Mish, is I'm a financial guy, and I have, I advise founders on how to get to better outcomes, whether it be selling their business or to an outside buyer, or selling their business to their employees, or finding a way to finance a purchase by a partner, or bringing in growth capital or something like that.
Yep.
Even though that's kind of my day-to-day work, I get plenty of questions about like what's going on with the financial markets, and why the markets seem to rally even though that other stuff was happening. And I would tell you that part of the reason the financial markets have rallied is that people ultimately think that the U.S. is going to turn out okay.
Yes.
The debt and deficits notwithstanding, like I'd be hard pressed to tell you that that Tesla bears any relation to the fundamentals or economics of its business and the stock price. But man, you tell somebody who invested, $100,000, 8 years ago in Tesla, who's now worth $12 million, that it's not worth every penny of that. When Tesla's worth, I think, 2 or 3 times the entire automotive industry right now.
So
and
crazy.
2% of the world is operating on hybrid and electric cars. I mean, there's a disconnect.
Yes.
But right below that is the idea that the financial markets have actually probably been strong in the last couple of weeks, partly because we're going to change to a stabler administration and the world can breathe a sigh. And they can kind of go, glad the U.S. is through that.
Yeah, I like it. I had a buddy who told me way back in the day, don't fight the Fed. And I'm sure you've heard that statement before.
Right.
Absolutely. And so I like to think of it too, more from a way macro standpoint, that we are printing so much money. And it clearly, every time I think, wow, we've reached the peak, it's like, no, we're just getting started. right? Because now Biden's talking, and I'm not saying good or bad. I love it all, right? It's all God's beautiful creation to me. So I think I look at it and go, wow, this is a fun ride. Can't wait to see what happens next. So when new administration is talking about, okay, let's ramp up the new 4 trillion plan or whatever, I'm like, oh my God, this is wild times. Because I'm a finance guy.
Here's the hard and fast data. Without question, kind of conclusively, full stop.
Yeah.
The financial markets do better under Democrats than they do under Republicans. Now you
really?
can come up with whatever you want to come up with.
Yeah.
To say that, well, that's just because Democrats take over after Republicans do the hard work. The amount of time that people gave, Bill Clinton's economic prosperity, but the amount of time they gave credit to George H.W. Bush and Ronald Reagan before him, like they said, well, Clinton didn't do anything. It was those guys before him that did stuff. And then Obama's
of course, right? That's everybody's
Well,
argument.
you can't fall off the floor. And George W. Bush started making the hard decisions, and Obama just carried through, right?
Right. It's just this endless loop.
Well, the way people kind of wrap themselves around the axle trying to justify their position is like, look, I'll give you the hard and fast data.
Yeah.
There's no question that the stock market goes up a ton more under Democrats than it does under Republicans. So
yeah, it's cool. Hey, it's cool. I'm not saying good or bad. I along the lines, don't fight the Fed. It's like there's so much money being printed, it's got to go somewhere. And I would state that around the world, like so many governments. What's so many federal reserves of other countries are printing so much money that it's got to go somewhere. And what was it? The Wehrmacht I think about this, and I'm not well read enough. I'm super stoked to be having this conversation with you because I was wondering, I was like, am I ever going to talk about this stuff on a podcast? And bam, here we go. So
here we are.
So in what it was, 1918 or 1920 or that time frame, the Wehrmacht was printing mass money.
That's right.
And there's a parallel today, and that back then they were, and I'm not saying good or bad, I'm just trying to stick to the facts as I know them, that they were printing the money for the common man to help them through through that economic turmoil. And so fast forward to today, and we've got a lot of that going on. And I'm not saying what's coming next, other than the Wehrmacht went into hyperinflation, and that sort of wreaked havoc and opened the door for
Hitler.
Yeah, for Hitler. So I'm by no means saying that's happening now, but I do think it's interesting that we're printing a lot of money, which could lead to hyperinflation. So go ahead, talk to me about that.
Well, so look, there are some parallels. We're talking about a century's worth of monetary and fiscal and policy different. There are a couple of, I think, reasonable parallels. One is that printing money to a point when you've got as strong an underlying economy and drivers of the economy and tax base as the United States has, to a point is fine.
Yes.
I think one of the things we got to get our heads around as a nation is that we've become fairly addicted to debt, government debt, consumer debt. We've decided on which debt's good and which debt's bad. We give tax breaks to people who will take out reckless amounts of money to buy a house as long as a bank will give it to them. On the other hand, we don't give a tax break to an entrepreneur who wants to borrow that much money to fund a business idea. There's a value judgment in that. I would say that deficits that are incurred on the way towards social good, as opposed to giving tax breaks to people that didn't need them.
Right.
Look, as a value judgment, I would tell you that It is unfortunate that we gave $2 trillion worth of tax breaks to people that didn't need it, and the economy was already good, such that we're now looking at $4 trillion to solve problems for people that really do need the money. And now all of a sudden we're disciplined and worried, right? Like, so, and the other piece that I'll come back to is, you know, the hyperinflation that came about as a result of, you know, kind of the policies and processes that led to, you know, people in Germany with wheelbarrows full of, you know, that currency
to buy bread,
which then led to a tyrannical eventual dictator taking advantage of, okay, thing one is tell a big lie.
Yeah,
I can solve this for you. Thing two, say that everybody who disagrees with me is lying. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Thing three, have you go, well, who's to say? Now everybody's lying. And thing four is step in and live the big lie. Right? Now, tyrannical overthrow done. Right?
Right.
And so
propaganda machines, all kinds of stuff.
That piece has happened. That piece has happened in a post-truth era, where somebody who lied so frequently that they came up with indexes about how often the lies were happening, that it was hard to keep up.
It's so
Eventually
beautiful.
People go, well, everybody's lying. Right?
Right. Oh my gosh.
I'm not going to tell you that Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris don't ever shade the truth. But no one lies like Trump does. No one lies like Bolsonaro down in Brazil does. No one lied like Chavez did, right? So again, false equivalence, right?
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. I usually at the start of my episodes, which I skipped on this one, but it reminds me that I should do it, is to talk about the purpose of the podcast, is to talk about the bitch slap, where the universe shakes us and says, hey, we need to change our perspective, go to source or what have you, to find a new way. So, but I'm down for keeping talking about this. John, you know, John, our good buddy, John G. John Gerard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He recommended this book, and I'm curious if you read it. It's called The Deficit Myth by Stephanie Kelton. Have you read that book by chance?
No, of the book. I have not read it.
Okay.
John G and I are in a little bit of a book club.
Yes.
Yeah. So we trade book ideas back and forth.
So beautiful. I love the fact that you read as much as you do. And I have a question around that, but I do, just to sort of bring it back to the purpose, tell me of the conversation that we just had and all the stuff we touched on. Tell me some like bitch slap or some God shot or some, I have to change. Kirk needs to change his perspective within all that along the way. Yeah.
So look, I mean, I think, back when I was, you know, there are those, I've seen it in bumper sticker form. You know, I wish I was 16 and knew everything again. You know, like, look, I thought that my parents were incredibly clueless when I was 16. And by the time I was 30 and had kids, I thought my parents were really insightful.
Yes.
And now at 58, not only do I think my parents are insightful, but they did the best they could. And that there are lots and lots of people out there who have different perspectives than mine, and that looking at theirs, I mean, look, if you're racist and homophobic, fuck you. I don't have to cross the aisle and figure out what motivates you. I don't care. Leave. Go somewhere else. We had no room for you, right? Everybody else, I got to try and find a point of convergence. You know? And so when I look at
Oh my God.
my my ability to articulate my perspective, and
Yes.
more so, my ability to take what I see as the truth and beat the
Yes.
shit out of you with it. Like, I'm not sure who, there is a famous author, and it might have been Oscar Wilde, that said, honesty without compassion is brutality.
Mm.
And one of the things that I have come to grips with is the idea that I used to be truthful when there was upside to it, or there was no downside to it, or I could stroke my ego by using my truth to, either beat the shit out of you or exalt my own, kind of.
Perpetrate your self-righteous
Absolutely.
agenda.
And
Yes.
eventually you'll just shut up and stop arguing with me because I'm going to like out fact you. But like, here's the thing. Like, I like to run because I get a lot out of running. Now, I could use the fact that I like to run and maybe you don't as a way to decide that I'm better than you because I run and you don't.
Yes.
Well, you're laughing because that's patently absurd, right? And so just because I enjoy reading a lot and have a bunch of facts at my disposal, like, I don't get to be mean to people that don't like reading a lot, right?
So, you are so on right now. I mean, just, it's so true. I'm loving it. I'm relating. That's why I'm laughing.
So I just like, we're talking about John G. I have conversations with John.
Yes.
And I am made aware that there are people who, because of my proximity and my connection, I feel like we're really similar. And then I'm talking to someone like him and think, oh my God, the magnitude of things I don't yet know.
Oh God. That
a guy who seems to me to be perfectly normal, occupying the same space, breathing the same air as me.
Yes.
The things he knows that I don't kind of make me aware that, I've been misjudging what goes on inside of other people for a long, long time.
I love that, Kirk. I love that. That's so beautiful. I just got the chills. That's such a beautiful thought. I don't know if you listened to the Bill Feeney interview that I did.
Mm-hmm. I love Bill Feeney.
So check it out. It's a great interview. It's just pure Bill, obviously, as you'd expect it to be. But he was that point for me where somebody said, hey, this was a number of years ago. Someone said, hey, you should check out this piece of art that Bill did. And I was like, Bill does art? And then
because if you had been told that he owned a construction company, you would have gone, yeah, I can see that.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And so I started digging into Bill's art, and I was like, I had that same bitch slap moment that you were just talking about, where it was like, oh my God, I truly, the level of contempt prior to investigation that is still in me, right? And just what's going on in people, I have no idea. And it oftentimes is a lot more beautiful than I can comprehend. And that sometimes it's a lot more painful than I would care to acknowledge,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
I mean, look, we're in a probably a pretty important moment. And, guys like us are kind of uniquely well suited to have, made changes in our lives in order to kind of disable a beast that was taking us down a really, really bad path.
Yeah.
And, I can speak for me only, but I can say that, I have a ton of gratitude for even many of the things that I wish I'd never experienced.
Yeah.
Because
love that message.
Today, like, having squandered financial resources and professional possibilities make me far more grateful for what I have today.
Mm-hmm.
When I can write on my gratitude list in the morning that I have enough, right? And enough doesn't have like that. Like, this is a, Jack Bogle, the guy that founded Vanguard. I mean, you talk about a true believer. This guy wrote a book about all the coincidences that led him to where he was in his life, sort of the combination of, mercy, suffering from that maybe he should have, and grace, getting gifts that he maybe didn't do anything to deserve, but he got them anyway.
Mhm.
And little odd, things that, like, I think one of his parents worked in some low-level job at Princeton, and so he got free tuition at Princeton. He graduates from Princeton while he's doing his master's thesis.
Mm.
He looks at the investment world and he decides that the cost of buying and selling assets and the cost of having someone manage them for you is a significant drag on the performance of those assets. And if there was a way to access those same markets more cheaply, that led to the formation of Vanguard, which is one of the 3 or 4 largest asset management platforms in the world now, measured in probably somewhere between $3 and $6 trillion in assets under management.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he wrote a book, and I can't remember the name of the book because he, like, towards the end of his life, he started kind of cataloging all of these different sort of observations of life. And
what's the name of the book? Tell me, do you remember the name of the?
I can't remember the name of the book, but it starts out. It starts out with the story of these 2 guys at a garden party in the Hamptons or Greenwich, Connecticut. And one of the guys is talking about how extraordinarily successful the host of the party is. They're on this big, huge lawn, with, all the trappings of wealth around them. And this guy is talking somewhat enviously about, the host of the party and his success and all the things he has. And the other guy says, yeah, it's impressive, but I have something he'll never have. And this guy's looking at him incredulously, like, how could that be? Because he knows that the guy he's talking to is not nearly as wealthy. And he says, I have enough. And so Jack Bogle, who could have been worth billions of dollars, wasn't, because he only sought to have enough. And he created Vanguard as a mutual company so that the shareholders and the employees owned the company. So Jack Bogle never got to know what it was like to be a billionaire, even though he built an asset management company that manages trillions of dollars, because the focus was having enough. And
beautiful,
dude, if I hadn't gone through the moving from having an 800 plus credit score and owning a couple of houses and a bunch of cars and belonging to a country club and, being like getting recruited all the time to, like, come build this or do that, or, join our tribe, you can be a chief over here. You're an Indian where you are, like, if I had not gone through that and then down to a 550 credit score and dig my way back out.
Yes.
Like, I wouldn't appreciate being at 800 plus today and having enough. Right? I wouldn't appreciate it.
God, it feels good to have enough. I love that. And I am in that space. And I mean, often I have my moments, of course, I'm human,
of course.
But I love that idea. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. And I did not know that about Jack Vogel. It's those kind of stories that give me so much hope. I had this idea. It was very much in my head that, corporations are the evil empire, right? And sort of the Matrix idea. And then I was like, well, it's because I choose to see them that way, right? If I could, they can be a force for good. In other words, if I choose to see them as a force of evil, that is what I'm going to see, and that's what they're going to be. Versus if I'm willing to, perhaps, and this is fairly recently for me, where I definitely had the clear intuition, like, look for the good. And then, here we are, Jack Bogle. So thank you for that story. So that's really cool. I wrote down a few things before I was going to talk to you. And one is trials and tribulations at work. because I know it sounds like, and I think, well, let me go on. I put relationship fun, past marriages / dating, blended families, which could be sort of the current iteration, community - always solid, and then I have Kirk's bitch slap to me, or long-term growth play / laugh out loud. So I think I want to make sure to talk about this, the sort of that moment with you to me, because I don't want it to slip past this episode, and then we can address whatever else you want. So I got divorced. So a little of our history, we sort of had some getting divorced at around the same time. I can't remember who was ahead of who, but we both got to move into the the wayward home for divorced males, AKA the beach colony. The beach colony. And you had said something to me, because I had a propensity to talk about Dawn, my dear friend and my boy's mom, as the ex-wife. And there's a point where you came to me, and I do remember, I think I was ahead of you clockwise as far as actually being through the divorce. And you said to me, you might want to try, or you said, I think you framed it like this: a big point of growth for me, Misha, was when I was able to start talking about what is your current, most recent ex-wife. I'm sorry to say it that way, but when I could refer to her by name. And I was like, yeah, fuck you. I might not have said that, but I was very steadfast in my no, I need to reference her as the ex-wife. And you brought that up to me a couple times over a couple years. And when I was like, yeah, that, it's that competitive side of me where it's like, who's ahead, who's not, which is such an illusion. And God forbid you would have more intuition to have a better relationship with your ex-wife than I would, right, in that moment. And B, that you were right. So I somewhere over the past number of years, it's become very important for me to refer to Dawn as Dawn. And she's more happy about that too, of course. Right? Of course. And so thank you for that. I appreciate that. So,
well, as a friend of ours often says, take my advice. I'm not using it. But I actually, like in that moment where we both were, and I think chronologically you were ahead of me down that path. And I think for both of us, it was probably really important that we move on from those relationships. But for me, I had to stop thinking about Erin in relation to me. It was not my ex-wife. Look, in purely semantic terms, that works, but she would no longer be defined by her relationship to me. And as soon as I could get my head around that, and I still think of her as Emily and Bryce's mom. And the picture of her contact on my iPhone is a precious picture of Bryce when he was like 5 years old, so that when she called or texted me, I would see the picture of Bryce and remember that that's what Erin represented. And I would tell you that I think like when I see you and Dawn around each other, I think you have a much better relationship than Erin and I do. There's damage that I did in that relationship that I don't think in her current kind of development or capacity she'll ever forgive me for.
Yeah.
And I can't keep seeking it out, but I could change what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I could, make the amends that I needed to make. And, one part of that that's tricky is that, this, I can't remember where I got the metaphor, but somebody, essentially told me that if Emily or Bryce, were diabetic and Aaron was the only way to get insulin or they would die, you would figure out a way to get along with her and to have a good enough relationship with her to make sure that couldn't happen. And, and one of the other things I thought you were going to mention that we talked about was that we, as men, one of the things that I see guys do, and I certainly was guilty of in my first divorce, was, sort of doing that, measuring ourselves by how much money we were spending on our divorce lawyers and how much my ex wants out of me, and it's not helpful, right?
It's not helpful.
Like, somebody pointed out to me that why are you mad at her for wanting half when the bargain she made with you was that she got control of all for the rest of your life, and she wants half for some period of shorter than the rest of your life. I don't know. That does not sound to me like something you should be mad about, right?
Yeah. It's so good.
And look, I mean, Em and Bryce, like they have their own path and their own view of this. And Bryce and I have spent like on our way to shoot our bows together or going to do stuff together. We talk about this stuff, and he
tell the audience how old they are. Just
oh yeah. So Bryce is 16 and Emily's 18.
Okay.
Emily is graduating early from high school at in just like 10 days. And Bryce is starting to drive, so we go, find an empty parking lot and we drive around the parking lot. His getting his driver's license has been impacted by the pandemic. So but look, from his perspective, like in the same way that I can't imagine my mom and biological dad ever staying together, like, knowing them as an adult the way I did. My dad's, passed away, but I couldn't imagine them staying together. I can't imagine what that would have looked like. And Bryce kind of has the same feeling about me and Aaron now. Like, he certainly didn't back then when we were talking about this. When you're a little kid, you just want, things to be safe and to, so. I mean, look, I think they are, they suffered for it and they're the beneficiaries of whatever work that gets done along the way. And, we were talking about, finance guys and funds and whatnot. And I won't tell you the name of the billionaire fund manager that I sat for 2.5 hours in his conference room. And we talked about everything, including relationships with our kids. And he says to me, when I was talking to him, because I was in this period of time, I said, I really worry about what this is going to do to my kids. And he said, my wife and I have been married for, at that time, 35 years. My oldest is 31. In my case now, today, my oldest is 29. But he said, my oldest is 31. And I think they had 3 or 4 kids. And he goes, and as we were building the firm, we decided that the commute was impacting our life really negatively. And so what we did was build an office building and put our residence on top of it. He's up in the Bay Area. He's pretty well known for this, so somebody could intuit this.
Okay.
He said, and I'm in therapy with my second oldest son. And he says to me that his mom and I were so busy building the business, we never paid attention to him. And when I explained to him that we built the building and put our house on top of it so that we wouldn't have to commute, so we could maximize our time with them, and that he did his homework in the conference room of my firm and could see me sitting in the middle of the trading desk the whole day, like, how were we not present enough in his life? And he says, yeah, but Dad, I had to be so quiet. And his point was, you could end up in therapy with him about any number of things.
Right. Oh, who knows, right? And I think that's
so who knows?
Who knows? And
Yeah.
I think that's the haunting thing as a parent. You can never do good enough, which is not an excuse not to try, right?
Absolutely. Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So good. A massively profound moment for me was my divorce. I got separated tail end of 2010. Divorce was final, beginning of 2012. Took me a good 5 to 7 years, somewhere in that time frame, to get a grip on the full nature of my wrongs in that relationship with Dawn. And at 5 to 7 years, I sat her down and I finally had the clarity. And this was the thing for me. My impression was that most people looking at us post-marriage from the outside world would say, oh, Dawn's just a little crazier than you. And I loved that. And I leaned on that, and I could hang on to that slight bit of victim mentality. And it was definitely a disservice to me. And surely energetically not, she doesn't need that in her life. And when I finally was able to come to grips to the full nature of my wrongs as best I could, I'm sure there's more out there, but new levels of it, and really sit her down and be like, Don, I was emotionally, I can't believe I'm saying this on this podcast, but I will. Why not? I was emotionally abusive. I was, verbally abusive. I could be, financially abusive, right? Like holding the money strings and manipulative, or call it what you will, and some other things, and apologizing for that. And also the, holding the more of the victimhood stance. It was very freeing for me to cop to all that. And so definitely, as you'd expect, our relationship changed a little bit from there. And not that it was bad at that point. It was just, I also had this awareness for me to her. I always looked at her, and she just happened to be in the magnifying glass, but I had always looked at her with an air of judgment, right? Or so, never quite happy with what she was up to, which was, you could, if you just shine that, my vision out, it was like the world, my kids, me, right? Like you could just, she just happened to be in that radar. And I look at it and go, yeah, that's a hard place to live. So,
well, if it could be heard on the podcast that I was laughing, it's because I once accused Aaron of being so judgmental that once you had been in her, gun sights, judgment wise, like you couldn't get out, you couldn't, and she says, think about what you just said to me, and think about how judgmental that is.
Yeah. Right.
And it's tautological, right? It goes around in
my God.
Circle.
So beautiful.
So yeah, I mean, look, we were however we were, right? And it's like, it's a cop out to say we did the best we could, but it's also not true.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know about you, but I don't have a form of a higher power in my life that can go back and change my past.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to create some hagiography that makes my past even better than it was, or less bad than it was. Unless, of course, I want to convince you of how bad it was, and then I want it to be worse than it was. Right? But
we had, you know what? I love that, and I didn't say this for. I wouldn't. There's truly the sense of I wouldn't change everything. I mean, of course, it's a bummer to have that strife and the emotional ups and downs and the wreckage, or to see, it feels like our kids suffer so much through that. But honestly, like I look back at it and go, get in line, right? It's not like I'm any worse than anybody else or you, or, I mean, I think I think what I'm trying to break the habit of is to quit leveling, to be like, you're worse than me in this area, you're worse than me in this area, or you're better than me in this area. And that's just an illusion. And then it perpetrates a lot of, for me, a lot of judgment and negativity, where it's almost like I start looking for people that I believe are worse than me with what I believe are my bad habits, so I can point to them, right? And that's all just BS, in my opinion, these days. And so the idea of levels of bad, I'm trying to stop doing that,
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Yeah, same.
Yeah. So I just want to talk about your work because I don't know, over the past, seems like, well, I'll say from an outside perspective, it seems like relationship thriving with Christine thriving there. What's that?
With a K.
With a K. Thank you. I'm always troubled with that name. I mean, not in like, I'm like,
well, it throws a lot of people. You put the K on there and people want to put an A at the end of it. And so that just must be either more common or more common in people's mind.
Yes. So, and love Christine. What a beautiful, just.
She's awesome, right?
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
Great. So we as married men, we sometimes will refer to our better half, right? And I think for most guys, they're saying it just because it's a throwaway line.
Yes.
No one ever argues with me.
I love that. Oh, good. I actually hope to interview her. I would love to interview her because she's so intelligent and just.
She'd be fun.
Yeah, super fun. So I was thinking after ours, I would reach out to her.
She'd love it. She'd love it. Yeah.
But work. So I know, you've had tremendous success, some lows, as you said, and then, last I heard effectively was you'd been rehired by your old company and you were working hard to make that work. And it seemed to be a source of frustration. And I know you were looking for perhaps new inspiration. And it sounds like that sort of manifested. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a lot of pretty neat gifts. When I was at the peak of, kind of at least what you would view from the exterior as career success, was more than 20 years ago. And, I'd been promoted fast, was making a lot of money. And I worked for Bernstein, often also referred to as Sanford C. Bernstein, which was the guy's name who founded the firm.
Okay.
And I went to work for the firm when there were 400 employees. The first time I left the firm, there were about 1,500. Today, there are, I think, 4,000. It's a big asset management firm. It's a publicly traded company. Wonderful company. It's like a think tank that happens to manage money. It's a really, really neat firm in a lot of different ways. And I would tell you that I was a talented race car driver who had a great team and a great car. And when I left, I didn't recognize the importance of car and team. I thought it was all talent driving. And I went into bigger roles at smaller firms in a spiraling downward direction. And it was in Hollywood terms, I would say it was like this. They say there are phases of a career. There's like, get me Kirk Michie.
Yes.
Okay, get me a less expensive Kirk Michie. Okay, get me a younger Kirk Michie. Okay, get me a Kirk Michie type, right? And I went through all of those phases as an investment or finance guy, and by the time no one was like recruiting me anymore, most of the conversations were like, "Can't you just?" or "Why don't you just?" ... right? And and I remember seeing a 30 by 30 where they were doing a thing on Todd Marinovich, who was one of the most talented quarterbacks and the most highly sought after prospects in history. He happens to have gone to USC, where I went to, but that's not really why I connect with his story.
Yeah.
But he battled addiction and bad behavior. He kind of shot his way out of the NFL with multiple chances, and they were interviewing him. He's standing at a gas pump filling up his car and trying to make a living as an artist, living off whatever vestiges of whatever was left from, you know, his career or whatever. But you could tell he was hurting. And the guy says something about, you know, what do you say to people who say that you squandered your talent? And, you know, he looks at the person interviewing him like it's the truest thing he's ever said. And he said, well, it was my talent to squander. Mm. And like, you know, what it doesn't say is, why don't you guys stop judging me? Like, if you didn't have what I had, you trust me when I tell you that my pain over my squandered opportunities is much larger than your judgment of my squandered opportunity. Right. And so I switched, and I went from being a wealth management guy into private equity. And I used a mercenary skill set of being able to raise money and talk to investors. And I kind of changed my stripes. And while I was in the middle of the divorce that we were talking about, I was having the fact that I was on an airplane, you know, 80% of the time, and staying in hotel rooms 80% of the time, used against me so that I wouldn't have any custody of Emily and Bryce. And we were on our way to making a lot of money. But I kind of recognized that while I was digging my way back out, and I was really putting points on the board, and eventually when we sold some of these investments, I was going to make a lot of money. And I didn't even begrudge the fact that I was going to give up a lot of that to Aaron, because it would ultimately be for Emily and Bryce's benefit. But if I wasn't going to get to see them, then forget it, right? I wasn't going to be Disneyland every other weekend dad. No way. And I had other people that were saying, you know, you're a lot happier than their mom is. And if those kids only are around their mom, who's angry, partly at you and partly at the world and partly at whatever else, imagine how that's going to turn out. So I went to my partners and I said, guys, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. And I was the public face and voice of our firm. I said, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I have to change. And I made Emily and Bryce promise that, because, you know, when your kids are little, and Em and Bryce were like 6 and 9 at this time, they don't know that daddy can't maintain his income and the support for the family by taking a job at Walmart or Macy's or Starbucks. Right. They just, so they wanted me to get a different job so I didn't have to travel all the time. And so it took 2 years to kind of wind my way out, and I had to give up all the investments, and I had to give up the chance at, you know, kind of all that other stuff, which interestingly made my divorce that much more complicated, because no one could kind of imagine that I would do that. And so there was a fear or a belief that I had somehow hidden something, and it was painful enough to let it go, but to be accused of keeping it. So as I was getting to the point of you know, being able to kind of unwind from that, the only thing I knew was wealth management. And so, you know, I pinged the guy who I had given my book of clients to when I left Bernstein the first time around. He was now in charge of the United States for Bernstein. And I said, I want to get back into wealth management. And he said, great. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do?
Yeah, nice.
And they took me back. And 5 years after having kind of rebuilt a book, using my private equity skill set of helping founders get to sales of their companies so that I could then subsequently manage the proceeds.
Yes.
What I realized was that I enjoyed my business development activity. I did not enjoy my business. I enjoyed working with the founders to get to better outcomes. And So even though I had worked really, really hard to get to that point, and even though lots and lots of people in the firm, I mean, like everybody who I'd been through training with, 20 years before now ran the company or was retired.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody was pulling for me.
Yes.
Like it was, and I was miserable. Right.
Yes.
And it felt ungrateful. But I got to enough pain, and I went to my partners in the summer.
Tell me about that pain. Like, describe the psychic pain for me.
And I said, oh, yeah. So if this probably will resonate. If I never, ever, 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 ever have to talk to somebody about how their portfolio is doing against the S&P 500 or some other bullshit measure of success, again, I will consider the rest of my life well lived. That is the biggest waste of time in investments. And it is the way that we in the investment world trained people to think about how they were doing, right? It's wrong. It's horribly wrong. There are so many things that are so much more value added that a financial advisor can do for somebody.
Yes.
And to make their lucky ass guesses outperform the S&P 500. I mean, but I mean, that's how people think about their portfolios. And so when I would get hired for the wrong reasons, I'd be relieved because we were going to generate more money and my partners would think that I was doing really, really well. And when I would miss out on getting hired for what I thought were the absolutely right reasons, I was crushed.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't live with the idea that people would hire me to manage the bulk of or all of their wealth just because they liked me. And I couldn't stand the idea that if my technical competency for being their financial advisor wasn't sufficient for them to hire me, that was the measure of how successful I was. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And so I
saw it, by the way. I saw it. I got to see the process. So
You've got to see the process. I was miserable. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I appreciate that. I think it's just guys like us, or we get opportunities to transition. We get opportunities to find, perhaps when we hit that midlife crisis or whatever it is, we get to find a way to move more from soul or from spirit or from source, infinity, divine, call it what you will. And as we fight that, being on the growth path that we're on, if we fight that, it gets insanely painful.
Absolutely. Yes. Amen.
So anyway, go on. So
look, I mean, I had a few kind of angels and gurus that showed up during that period of time. First of all, my former partners, the leadership of the San Diego office, Bernstein, the leadership of the Western U.S. for Bernstein, and some of the other people in the firm were big Kirk Michie fans. But as the Vistage chair in town here said to me in one particularly startling and ultimately important meeting, he said, Kirk, everybody I know who knows you likes you. Why don't you?
Oh, gosh.
And
wow.
I mean, that hit me between the eyes.
Oh, my gosh.
So when I went to my partners and said, look, what would it look like, guys, if I just didn't do this anymore? And the funny thing is that my former partner here locally said, you mean quit? And I said, well, I was thinking about something a little more nuanced than that, because I couldn't afford to quit.
Yes.
I had responsibilities.
Yes.
And, but what I didn't want to do, and it's not that I didn't look at it, it's not that I didn't consider it, but ultimately what I didn't want to do was what so many financial advisors do, which is to sell their book of business to the next highest bidder, get in a lawsuit with the firm they're leaving about whose clients they are, and sign a promissory note with the new firm for what amounts to a decade of your life.
Yep.
So for whatever anybody thinks is a lot of money, to me, I had offers in a range between, call it 800,000 and 2.5 million, all of which would be a lot of money.
Yep.
But the idea that I would sign a promissory note that the next 9 years of my life was tied to that payment was not enough. Like, I don't know what my number is, but it's more than that. Like, I can just tell you it's more than that. Early in my career, I had a guy, I was working at a Swiss bank, and he asked me if I would go to Bern, Switzerland, and get the $1 million that he had squirreled away over there and never paid taxes on, and that he would share. He would give me 100,000 in cash if I went to Bern. He would pay for me to get there. He would pay me 100,000 of it in cash when I got back. I explained to him that every $10,000 is a count, a felony count of money laundering, right? And he said, yeah, that's why I'm going to give you $100,000. And I said, I remember, kind of smiling at him. He's this old guy, lived down in La Jolla. And I said, I've never spent much time thinking about what my number is, but I'm positive it's higher than that. Right? And I can tell you, I've never crossed the line in my professional career, and that I can hang my hat on. And so it felt icky to me to pursue any other alternative than to go to my partners in fear and say, what can we do?
Yeah.
And they were wonderful. They gave me a ramp out. They said, look, if you help us transition the clients to other advisors, then we'll support whatever you do. And they did. And at the same time, that guy that told me that everybody liked me except me, when he asked me if the fact that I had developed this reputation within the Vistage community, which is, a group of people who gather together entrepreneurs and teach them how to be CEOs. I had spoken at a lot of their events. I'd met with a lot of those entrepreneurs, and I had developed a reputation for helping those founders get to better exits when they wanted to sell their company or transfer ownership. He said, how's that working out for you to have that reputation? And I said, it's not. I mean, in many cases, they are really, really appreciative and want to give me money, and I can't take it because of the way I'm registered as a financial advisor. Or they'd like to work with me, but they don't like Bernstein's platform because they want to work with an independent financial advisor, or they want to be all in index funds, or they want to buy commercial real estate, and we don't do that, or we only sort of do that. And so I get done with that, and instead of commiserating, he says, well, whose fault is that? Right? And so I had to kind of think about that. And so here's what happened. And, and I don't want to give short shrift to, I had one possibility of doing something that would have combined my experience in financial advisory work and my M&A work. And the guy that I started heading down that path with, I never quite went to work for him, but I started heading down this path with a guy who I'd known more than a decade, who was going to pay me really, really well to join his firm. He was going to make me a partner, and I was going to help financial advisors sell their practices to bigger firms. And so I'd be in M&A, but I would also be working with financial advisors. Seemed ideal. There was something about the way we worked together that just was awful. And every time I was around him, my stomach was churning and my limbs were cold, and I wanted to leave the planet. And I'm sure it's not him. I mean, he might have some part in it, but for whatever, I don't know, maybe he reminded me of the German Shepherd that bit me when I was 5. I don't know, Mish, but there was something about that. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. God. And you mentioned Christine. I mean, thank God for Christine, because, we're up in LA. We're staying at this little hotel in Manhattan Beach. I'm supposed to go into his office. We're supposed to start planning me joining that firm to do this work. And I'm just sick to my stomach. And I said, honey, I don't think I can do this. And she said, we'll figure it out. And I texted him and I said, I'm not going to do it. It was a little bit of the coward's way out, but
So be it.
He sent me 5 or 6 nasty grams on our way down to San Diego. We got home. I spent about 15 more minutes being a victim, and I went on GoDaddy and I built a website, and I started reaching out to all my connections to say, I don't know exactly what this is going to be, but I'm going to help founders get to better outcomes. If they're close to selling their business, I'm going to refer them to a network of investment bankers, because I know more investment bankers than any investment banker I know.
Yep.
And if they're a year or two away, I'm going to help them build the things in their business that will get them more money or better control of the terms or better preservation of their legacy. And if they've got a problem like misaligned shareholder interests, like they don't get along with their partner anymore, or they've got a financial partner that they don't see eye to eye with, I'm going to help with that. I'm going to be like the Ray Donovan of the financial world, right? I'm not going to drive around in an S-Class with a baseball bat in the trunk, but like I'm going to fix problems. Right? And I started out with a business plan that was just that amorphous and a website that was pretty skeletal. It had the basic building blocks. Within 2 months, I had my first client. Within 4 months, I had my second client. Within 6 months, I was back to earning as much money as I had made at Bernstein. And while I can't tell you that, I have as big a business as I think I'm capable of having, I will tell you that if I onboard 2 new clients that I think I'm going to onboard in the next month or so, they're telling me they're going to hire me. We just there are proposals outstanding, but if that happens, then within the next 6 months, I'm going to have to figure out how to scale my business, because it has succeeded beyond my business plan and in ways that I wouldn't have imagined. And I've never had more fun doing the work that I'm doing right now. So thank God for the pain. Like the pain had to be bad enough that I couldn't imagine continuing to do that. And I know we've had experiences in other areas of our life where that, having gone through that crucible, you get to the other side and go, oh yeah, that's precisely what that takes. Right? Sorry, that was a little bit of a long-winded answer to your fairly basic question, but that's what it took.
You know what? Thank you for that. It's beautiful and so well said. And just the essence of the bitch slap and the idea of, hopefully we can shorten that pain loop. However, oftentimes it seems that it is required to be reformed through that crucible on the other side, cleansed, call it what you will. So that was amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Real quick, in that regard, if people wanted to find you, what's the best way for people to track down Kirk Michie?
Yeah, so the website is candor-advisors.com. Advisors is spelled with an O. Then there's also, my telephone number, 424-365-2525. I'm not yet to the point where I can't kind of keep up with the communication.
We can hope.
Well, look, I'm telling you, there's a couple of friends of ours who have encouraged me to do, more video, because I've had some professionally produced videos that, in posting them to LinkedIn, have gotten, they've really, really broadened my network. I get plenty of people that want to sell me stuff, but and that's natural. Look, everybody's got to try and earn their keep somehow. And I have the appearance of having a really big, successful business on LinkedIn. There's a country and western song, I'm so much cooler online. And, there is an element of that happening, but I'm going to work with a digital, media marketing group that has some cool ideas for building my web presence to do something that's a little bit more levered in addition to the consulting work I'm doing. There would be a way for people that can't afford to hire me as a part or full-time consultant to maybe attend, a founder university to learn some of these tools, to incorporate them in even smaller businesses. And there would be a way to take what I used to do as an advisor and build like an advisor boot camp for financial advisors and CPAs and attorneys who want to do more of this advisory work. I can teach them how to, how and what to do with clients. Because it's like Simon Sinek says, it's about the why. It's not about the features and benefits. I will tell you that founders often think that the time to think about selling is, when they're ready to retire, or when they get an unsolicited offer from a larger competitor to buy them. And I would tell you that it's just as common for a founder to want to exit because they can't stand their partner, or because they're burnt out after 20 or 30 years of doing the same thing over and over again, or they can see glacial forces moving in their direction that are going to cause their business to become the Titanic, and they want to get out before that happens. Or they're worried that there's going to be an economic downturn, and they've been through 6, 7 of those as entrepreneurs, and they don't want to go through it again. There's a lot of reasons to exit, and every business's story is as unique as the founder is. And the challenge for those people, and I really, really, I love founders, I love entrepreneurs, I love meeting people and going, wow, I never would have thought of that as a way to get rich, right? And I hear it over and over again. But
by the way, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that's what I loved about the loan business was, and I had the opportunity to have average loan amounts as a home mortgage officer of $1 million. And so typically people getting $1 million loans are self-employed entrepreneurial type. And I just would love the stories and these businesses that were created. And it would blow my mind, right? What people came up with and what's needed. Unbelievable. Anyway.
It's neat, but I'll tell you that each one of those founders has built their business on instinct for the most part, and ignoring criticism and or not taking bad advice, but going with their gut, right? And it's not that they're not at all analytical, and it's not that some of them don't have, McKinsey-esque, kind of management consulting kind of bona fides or natural talents. But instinct doesn't scale. And, the challenge for a lot of them is, what Seth Godin talks about, turning instinct or habits into technique. And, technique scales. And but it's not natural. And so for some of them, the reason to exit is because they're not really the kind of people who can scale with the size of their business. And somewhere between 30 to 50 employees, most entrepreneurs start to have problems. And, there's a lot of different answers. There's not just one way to say, oh, when that happens, do this, right? And this is a group of people that are not used to taking advice, from anyone other than another entrepreneur. So the fact that I can talk to them about the idea that, as part of a private equity group, I was part of buying 14 companies and looking at more than 2,000 potential direct investments. And that as an advisor or principal, I've been involved in another 4 dozen exits, one way or the other. So, when you've been through 50 plus transactions and you spend your whole world in, or all of your time around people that are in the midst of transactions, I'm not saying there's nothing I haven't heard of.
But you've seen a lot of it. Hey,
a lot of stuff.
So quick, Candor-Associates. So spell the whole thing out.
Candor Advisors.
Candor Advisors. Candor Advisors. So spell it out.
CANDOR advisors.com.
Beautiful. Phone number 424-365-2525.
2525.
Beautiful. Thank
We
you.
can either help them or we can get them to somebody who can help them.
I love it. And I think too, I know you give back to community as much as you can. So anybody who's listening, who's like, it sounds fascinating what Kirk is doing, I would encourage them to pick up the phone and pick your brain, as far as not saying that you would mentor them, but you sure could provide some inspiration or some direction or what have you. So I think so many levels.
Sure.
It's great to get your information
Absolutely.
out there. I would also, I want to ask you, being a big reader, so for 2020, and I want to end with this, tell me your top 3 books. And hold on, we've got spiritual. What was your top spiritual book for 2020? It doesn't have to be written then or what have you, but what was the 2020, the spiritual book that you're like, this was the one that...
Yeah. So either, and it's, we were talking about John G before. So it's either The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer.
Yep.
Or Mindset by Carolyn Dweck.
Love them both. Have them both in my bookshelf.
And I might, honorable mention would be Drive by Daniel Pink.
Okay.
It's a merger between kind of, professional development and like what I think of as spirituality.
Fantastic. I'll check that one out. I am unfamiliar with that one. And then we've got business and personal, that different than the Drive though. So you're.
Yeah. So I think, look, Bob Iger's, the former CEO of ABC, Disney,
Yep.
That whole apparatus. I listened to that on audiobook early in the year, and anybody who runs a large organization should listen to that. They have no idea what it's like to run a huge organization once you've heard Bob Iger's story. And he starts with the day that they're opening Disney World China, and a 3-year-old has been eaten by an alligator or crocodile at Disney World in Orlando. And Bob Iger called the family. He was crying, telling the story, calling the family when he had to go on stage in China to open Disney World China.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. It's just so...
it's absurd, right?
Absurd.
The company is so big that when he starts talking about all the different ways Disney is in the world, it's incredible. So, that one was big. I will tell you that,
What's the name of that one?
I think it's something, it's been an incredible ride or something like that.
Okay.
Robert Iger is Iger.
Okay.
It was on the bestseller list for a long time.
Perfect.
I love a book that's not really, really well known called The Messy Marketplace.
Ooh,
by Brent Beshore. Brent Beshore is what I would call kind of a long-term patient capital private equity investor in Columbia, Missouri. And, that's where Mizzou, or the University of Missouri, is. And that's where my stepson, Travis, graduated from the journalism program. So I have a fond feeling for Columbia, Missouri, and Beshore happens to be out there. He's written a wonderful book about if you're a small business owner and you're thinking about selling, kind of a chapter and verse about what you need to know.
Cool.
What I can say about that one is I wish professionally that I would have written it because it's so, so very good.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And then, there's on my credenza, there's any number of great business books, but so it's hard to narrow in on one, but I would tell every single investor out there that understanding behavioral finance is more important than learning to trade options or understanding the etymology of stock symbols. And I would tell you that Fooled by Randomness by Nasib Taleb should be required reading by, I don't know, junior year in high school for everybody that's ever going to have a 401k they need to allocate.
Beautiful. I love that. Fooled by Randomness. And then we'll end it with your best escape book for 2020.
That's hard. So, I mean, not to like crow, but maybe to crow a little bit. I read 70 books in 2020. So
what?
So
what? I am in shock right now.
Yeah, anything by Michael Conley or Daniel Silva.
Okay.
Whatever they've finished writing most recent, those guys cannot write fast enough.
Gosh.
And there's a book by Carl Hyacin called Squeeze.
Okay.
Love he
Carl
writes
Hyacin.
mystery novels, but he's got like, if you ever heard the idea that if you want to see something funny, type in Florida man and the year you were born and just watch what comes up on Google. Well, Carl Hyacin writes, I think, for the Miami Herald, and he's also a mystery writer, and all of his stories are these absurd Florida stories. And I'm sorry to anybody listening who's a Florida person, but come on, like it was a guilty pleasure to combine mystery novel and laugh out loud, wonderfully accessible writing. Carl Hyacin's Squeeze.
Okay. Kirk, so beautiful talking to you. Thank you so much for just being open and letting it rip. And
likewise, Mish. This was a pleasure. Thank you. I love you. This is wonderful.
Love you too. Cheers.
Okay, man.
Okay.
See you soon.
Bye. Yep. Bye.
Thank you for spending time with me today. As someone who is committed to growth and service to this world, I so appreciate your willingness to come with me, go within, and serve our world through change. If you found value in this podcast and you know someone who can use this message, share this episode with them. Share it so our mission can be achieved one episode at a time. And of course, subscribe so you can hear more. And lastly, for my free Insider's Guide to Finding Peace, go to belove.media/peace. That's B as in boy, ELOVE.media/PEACE. It's my 8-step guide to finding peace now. It's a super powerful tool. I use it all the time. Check it out. I'm offering it to you for free. Thank you again for listening.